Okay, so get this, right? 2025 is going to be huge EE. Like, seriously massive for creatives.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're talking about a ton of stuff, creative works becoming public domain.
It's going to be free for everyone to use.
Yeah, exactly. Think like books, movies, music, even characters, big ones, like Mickey Mouse.
Yep, Mickey's on the list.
Pretty exciting stuff, right?
Totally. Think of it like a time capsule.
Oh, I like that.
From 1929, just bursting open.
And everyone's invited to dig in.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay, but before we get too ahead of ourselves.
Right.
You know there's got to be some legal stuff. Right?
Oh, for sure. It's super important to understand all the ins and outs.
Yeah, the fine print.
Of copyright and trademark.
Yeah.
You can't just, go wild.
Well, let's start with those characters.
Okay, yeah.
Popeye, Buck Rogers, Tintin. I mean, come on. Talk about a lineup.
It's a goldmine.
It is. I'm already picturing like a new Buck Rogers, gritty, modern, battling AI in space.
Look where your head's at. That's exactly how we should be thinking about these characters, reimagining them, for today.
Okay, but how does that work with trademarks and all that?
It's like this. Copyright is like the blueprint of a house.
Right. Okay.
And trademark, that's the brand name.
Ah, the sign out front.
Got it. You can use the blueprint, build a new house.
But I can't call it like the same name as the original?
Exactly. Trademark is all about that brand recognition.
So I can use the early Popeye.
The classic look.
But not like the modern updated version.
You got it.
Tricky.
But it's a good kind of tricky. Right?
Yeah, it's exciting. But what about the movies? We're not just talking cartoons here.
Oh, right. 1929 had some amazing films.
The Broadway melody, Hallelujah. Even Hitchcock. Blackmail, right.
Yep, and they're all about to be public domain.
Free to watch, share, study.
And adapt.
Yeah, exactly. Reimagine. That's crazy.
Think about it. These films are like snapshots of history, of our culture.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
And now they're open for anyone to explore.
Wow. Okay, so characters, movies, but there's one biggie we haven't talked about yet.
Let's talk about Mickey.
The mouse is about to be, well, kind of sort of free, right?
That's one way to put it.
Steamboat Willie, all those early cartoons, they're all on the list for 2025.
They are.
That's huge, right?
Oh, yeah. Huge. But remember what we said about blueprints and brand names?
Oh, right. So it's not a total free-for-all.
It's a bit more complex than that. You can work with the 1929 Mickey, the original.
But not the one we see everywhere today.
Exactly. Think of it as like vintage Mickey.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. So could I make a new cartoon with old Mickey?
You could, but you couldn't use the modern, trademarked one.
Tricky.
Yeah, the line can get a little blurry there. But, that's where the fun is, too.
Oh, for sure. I bet we'll see people getting creative, though. Like indie game developers using that old Mickey look.
Absolutely. We'll probably see a lot of that.
Yeah.
But that's where things get even trickier with something called derivative works.
Ah, legal stuff.
Right. Even though, Steamboat Willie is public domain, Disney could say a new game using that old Mickey is like too close to their modern Mickey, the one they still own.
So there's always going to be this back and forth with the law, huh?
There will be. But for those who really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this stuff...
Right, because it can get confusing.
You can. There's a great resource, the Duke Law Center, for the study of the public domain.
Okay, that's good to know.
They have a ton of info about all this, especially with Mickey Mouse.
I'm writing that down right now. But, okay, let's move on from visuals for a bit. What about music?
Oh, yeah. Get ready for some classics.
We're talking big names here.
Rhapsody in Blue, Stardust...
Whoa!
Ain't Misbehavin'. The list goes on, and they're all entering public domain.
So anyone can, play them?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Rearrange them.
Yeah.
Reinterpret them. Even sample them.
Hold on. So I could, hear Rhapsody in Blue in a hip-hop song.
That's the idea. It's about giving these tunes new life, making them accessible to everyone.
I can already hear it, like a modern jazz group putting a new spin on Stardust. That'd be so cool.
Exactly. But there's a catch. A big one.
Oh, there's always a catch.
Well, the compositions themselves, they're free, public domain.
Okay.
But the actual recordings...
Like someone's specific performance.
Exactly. Those might still be under copyright. So you can write a new arrangement of, say, Rhapsody in Blue.
Yeah.
But using a famous recording of it, that's a different story.
Ah, so it's not just the notes, it's also how those notes are played.
You got it. It's a subtle difference, but super important to understand.
Makes sense. So you can like be inspired by a classic,
Absolutely.
but you can't just rip off someone's exact performance of it.
Right. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all works. It's layers, right?
The layers, yeah. And this idea applies to all kinds of creative stuff, not just music.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so we've talked about characters, movies, music.
A lot of ground to cover.
We are on a roll. But what about like written works? Books?
Oh, man, get ready for some serious reading.
You mean like big famous books?
Faulkner, Hemingway.
No way. Those are public domain too.
Yep. The Sound and the Fury. A Farewell to Arms. Even some hard-boiled detective novels. Dashiell Hammett. Red Harvest.
I vaguely remember those titles from high school.
The Maltese Falcon. Some classics right there.
Wow. Okay, my reading list just got a lot longer. But this is about more than just reading, right?
Right.
Anyone can now like adapt those stories.
Exactly. Reimagine them.
Whoa, think of the possibilities.
I know, right? A graphic novel of A Farewell to Arms, or like a modern stage production of The Sound and the Fury, set in a big city.
I never would have thought of that.
The potential is huge.
It really is. Makes you wonder what those authors would have thought about all this.
Probably never imagined it. But that's the whole point of public domain, right?
Yeah, okay, you're right. It's like their work lives on and inspires new stuff decades later.
Exactly. It transcends time.
So cool. But it's not just about like copying word for word, right?
Right. That's not really the point. It's about inspiration.
Taking the spirit of the work.
Yeah, and creating something new.
Mm-hmm.
Using those classics as a springboard
Yeah.
for your own ideas.
Love that idea. But let's get down to brass tacks here.
Okay, yeah.
What can people actually do with all this public domain stuff in the real world?
Oh, man, the possibilities are endless.
Seriously, like what? Give me some examples.
I mean, you could put vintage book covers on T-shirts.
Ooh, that's cool.
Phone cases with like old maps, throw pillows with quotes from famous books.
Okay, you had me at throw pillows with literary quotes. That's amazing. I need that in my life.
Right. And think about all the people out there, like entrepreneurs who could use this stuff.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There's a huge market for this kind of vintage aesthetic. But wouldn't that be just copying, though?
That's the key, right? You got to add your own spin to it.
Yep. So not just slapping an old image on a product and calling it a day.
Exactly. It's got to be like a transformation.
Yeah.
You know,
And
take those vintage elements, but make them your own.
Okay, I get it. So like instead of just a plain old book cover on a t-shirt, you could like deconstruct the design, make it modern.
Exactly. That's the kind of creative thinking we need. And it's not just about physical stuff either.
Oh, right. What about all the digital stuff?
The public domain is a goldmine for that too.
Yeah.
Ebooks, obviously. But think about like digital scrapbooking kits.
Using vintage images and stuff.
Yep. Or fonts, you know,
Yeah.
inspired by old handwriting. Even printable art.
Oh, that's smart. You could sell those online. Etsy, here I come. But seriously, this is amazing. I feel like every creative industry is about to explode with all this new material.
It's a pretty exciting time. And think about the possibilities for education too.
Oh, right. Like what?
Flashcards with famous paintings.
Yeah.
You know, for kids learning about art.
That's cute.
Educational posters with like old scientific illustrations, even online lessons.
Using all these public domain images and texts.
Exactly. It's like giving teachers a whole new toolbox.
Yeah.
For free.
I love that. Okay, but you know my brain always goes to gaming.
I was waiting for that.
What if we had board games based on classic literature?
Oh, that's a good one.
Or card games with public domain characters? I'm telling you, the potential is huge.
It is. And with all the new technology like VR and AR, things could get really wild.
Oh, stop. My mind is already blown. Give me an example.
Imagine like stepping inside a Van Gogh painting through VR.
Whoa.
Or using AR to like have a conversation with a historical figure.
Okay, that's next level.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is all pointing to something much bigger than just like free stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's about like a fundamental shift in how we think about creativity and ownership.
Right. It's like for so long, these works have been locked away.
Protected by copyright, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. But now it's like we're opening the floodgates, sharing all this knowledge and creativity with everyone.
It's a move towards a more open, collaborative approach.
Like a democratization of creativity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where you come in, dear listener.
Wait, what do you mean? Me?
Think about it. What will your contribution to the public domain be?
Oh, wow. I never thought of it like that.
What will future generations create from your work? That's a powerful question. It's like a challenge, almost. Like, Are we going to step up and add to this legacy?
And it doesn't have to be a masterpiece,
Right. It's not about being the next Shakespeare.
Exactly. It could be a blog post.
Right.
Or a piece of fan art. Even just a remix of a public domain song.
Every little bit counts, right?
Every act of creation adds to this, like this giant tapestry of culture.
I love that image. It's like we're all weaving together this beautiful thing, each thread connected to the ones that came before.
And the public domain lets us connect with the past, reimagine it for the present, and inspire the future.
Okay, I'm feeling all inspired now, but I also feel like a little overwhelmed. If someone's just starting out with this, where do they even begin?
Well, there are tons of resources online. Yeah, we mentioned the Duke Law Center.
Right. That's a great place to start. And Project Gutenberg has all those free ebooks.
And the Library of Congress website is amazing for just browsing. You never know what you might stumble upon.
Exactly. Let your curiosity lead the way. Just get lost in those archives, See what sparks your interest.
Like a digital adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to be surprised by what you find. You might discover something you never even knew existed.
The more we talk about this, the more I realize that 2025 isn't just about free stuff.
Right. It's much bigger than that.
It's like a whole new way of thinking about creativity, about ownership, about how we build on the work of those who came before us.
I couldn't agree more. It's a movement towards a more open, collaborative, and I'd say even a more democratic approach to culture.
And that's definitely something worth celebrating. It really is. It feels kind of like, I don't know, like we're on the edge of something big,
Yeah, big time.
like a creative explosion or something.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, just imagine it, right? All these creative works, suddenly free, available to anyone.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is, but in a good way, right? Like a door swinging wide open.
That's definitely a good way. But, okay, for those of us who are, kind of new to this whole public domain thing,
Right.
where do we even start? It's a lot, right?
It can be. But honestly, the best place to begin is, with information.
Makes sense.
Get a good foundation, then dive in.
Okay, so like learning the rules of the game before you start playing.
Exactly. And luckily, there are some really great resources out there.
Oh, good. Like what?
Well, we've mentioned the Duke Law Center a few times already.
Right, for all the legal stuff.
Yeah, they have a fantastic website, super user-friendly, and they explain all the ins and outs of copyright and trademark, especially as they relate to the public domain.
Perfect. Bookmarking that one. So once we know the rules.
Right. Then it's time to start hunting for those public domain gems.
Treasure hunting. But, where do we even look?
There are tons of online archives dedicated to, preserving and sharing these works.
Like digital libraries.
Exactly. Project Gutenberg, for instance, has a massive collection of public domain ebooks.
Oh, yeah. I've used that one before. Tons of classics on there.
Right. And don't forget about the Library of Congress website.
Oh, man, that's a rabbit hole I can get lost in for hours.
Me too. They have everything, historical photographs, sheet music, early films even.
It's amazing.
It really is. It's like, stepping back in time.
Totally. But honestly, sometimes the best approach is just like browsing.
Oh, absolutely.
Just seeing what catches your eye,
Totally. It's all about discovery. Set aside some time, explore the archives, and see what sparks your interest.
Okay, I'm going to block out an afternoon for that, for sure.
Yeah.
But with so much stuff out there, it can be hard to know where to focus, right?
It definitely can. That's why it's helpful to, think about your passions. What are you already interested in?
Okay, so if I'm a history buff.
Then maybe you start with historical archives, Dive into primary source documents. Or if you're a music lover.
Public domain, feat music.
Exactly. Let your interests guide you. It'll make the whole exploration process so much more rewarding.
I like that. So it's not just about randomly grabbing stuff. It's about finding works that resonate with us personally.
That's it. It's about making the public domain your own. Finding those hidden gems that speak to your creative spirit.
It's like each of us can create our own little corner of the public domain, right?
Exactly. And that's what's so exciting about it. It's for everyone.
I love that. But okay, we've been talking about the practical side of all this. I'm also curious about the bigger picture, How do you see public domain impacting creativity in the long run?
Ooh, that's a big question, but it's a good one.
I know, right?
I think, honestly, the potential here is huge. I mean, potentially, public domain can lead to a whole new way of thinking about creativity.
In what way?
Well, for one thing, it's incredibly democratizing.
democratizing, like making it more accessible.
Exactly. Suddenly, anyone with an internet connection has access to these works. They can learn from them, be inspired by them.
Without having to like pay a fortune for it.
Right. And they can build upon them too. It's about removing those barriers to entry and allowing anyone to participate in the creative process.
That's a really cool idea.
It is. It could lead to, a whole new generation of creators who wouldn't have had the opportunity otherwise.
I like that. And I guess it also changes how we think about ownership, right?
Exactly. We're moving away from that old model, the one based on scarcity and control.
Yeah, where everything's locked down.
Right. And we're moving towards a model of abundance and shared ownership.
A model where we're building on each other's work. Kind of like open source software, but for creative stuff.
Exactly. It's a more collaborative and I think ultimately a more sustainable approach.
It's like instead of competing over limited resources,
we're all contributing to this shared pool of knowledge and creativity.
I love that vision. It's pretty inspiring, honestly.
It is. And I truly believe that this shift will lead to like a more diverse and vibrant cultural landscape. We'll see new voices emerge, fresh perspectives, and all sorts of new forms of creativity flourish.
It's hard to even imagine what those might be, but that's what's so exciting, right? The possibilities are endless.
Exactly. And as we look ahead to this future of creativity, I think it's important that we don't forget about the creators who pave the way for all of this.
Oh, for sure. The ones whose work is now entering the public domain.
Right. Their contributions are invaluable. I mean, they laid the foundation for this whole new era of creativity, and we're building on their legacy.
I think it's important to acknowledge that.
It is. We wouldn't be here without them.
So to all the artists, writers, musicians, filmmakers, everyone whose work is about to become public domain, we say thank you. Your legacy lives on and inspires us all.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And to everyone listening out there, if you're feeling inspired, if you're curious about this whole public domain thing, dive in, explore, create something amazing. The world's waiting to see what you come up with.
That's it. Go forth and create.